Most audiences were first introduced to the three Grace siblings on the big screen, but the original Spiderwick Chronicles books, written and illustrated by Tony DiTerlizzi and Holly Black, have a different ending than the one shown in theaters. So if you want the full story, today we're breaking down all 5 books in the original saga. This is the true ending of the Spiderwick Chronicles. The Grace siblings, Jared, Simon, and Mallory, move into their great-aunt Lucinda's Victorian house after their parents, Helen and Richard, get divorced. Mallory is 13, while Jared and Simon, identical twins, are 9. The Spiderwick estate lies in a remote rural area, far from New York, surrounded by forest, Robinson Creek, and an abandoned quarry. The mansion looks as though it's falling apart. While their mother tries to stay optimistic, the children explore with caution. Simon has secretly brought his 2 favorite mice with him, breaking his mother's rules. Jared begins hearing strange noises inside the walls, as if something were crawling through the darkness. He tells himself it's just a squirrel, but the uneasy feeling won't go away. Curiosity soon overcomes fear when Mallory and Simon join Jared. In the kitchen, they uncover strange objects hidden inside the wall: scraps of curtains, pins, a doll, lead soldiers, and a fencing medal that Mallory recognizes as hers, even though she has no memory of losing it. Something had been living there. Using a dumbwaiter, Jared climbs inside the wall and discovers a secret room. A library filled with books about fantastical creatures. On a desk, he finds a note with a riddle that promises to reveal a secret meant for all humanity. After solving the puzzle, Jared uncovers a hidden compartment in a chest in the attic. The clue mentions a man's torso, which can also mean a chest, revealing a hidden false bottom. Inside lies a leather-bound book titled Arthur Spiderwick's Field Guide to the Fantastical World Around You. Its pages depict fairies, goblins, and other fantastical creatures. Jared is captivated. The book explains that brownies, helpful household spirits that, when angered, turn into malicious boggarts that wreak havoc. Jared begins to suspect a boggart is responsible for what's been happening. The disturbances soon escalate. Mallory wakes up with her hair tied in knots and bruises on her body. Simon opens the cooler and discovers his tadpoles frozen into solid ice cubes. Beside them is a note that reads, "It's not very nice to freeze mice." At the same time, Jeffrey and Lemondrop have vanished completely. Their mother blames Jared, convinced he's acting out in anger over the divorce. Her suspicion is fueled by a recent incident at Jared's old school, in which he broke a classmate's nose. Feeling misunderstood, Jared still knows something supernatural is at work. Determined to stop the boggart, Jared rebuilds its home using a birdhouse and various items salvaged from the trash. With his siblings' help, they send the house up to the library using the dumbwaiter and decide to leave an apology note as well. While writing the note, Jared notices a watercolor of a man and a little girl with the inscription, "My dear daughter Lucinda, age 4. They realize Arthur Spiderwick is their great-aunt's father. Peace returns, but only briefly, until Thimbletack appears, a man no bigger than a pencil. He returns Jeffrey and Lemondrop and warns them, the book is not meant for mortals. Those who keep it will suffer harm. He orders them to destroy it before it draws the wrath of dangerous beings. Then he disappears. The siblings are left in stunned silence. Mallory flips through the book with growing doubt. If it's all real, the world is far more frightening than they imagined. Jared feels the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. Should they destroy the book, or use it to protect themselves? The mystery deepens. Who exactly are they, the beings who might become enraged? Their adventure is only just beginning, and the Grace children will soon discover that the fantastical world is much closer than they ever believed, lurking in the very corners of their own home. Everything begins when Jared comes home from detention after getting into a fight with his classmates, feeling as though nothing has improved since his parents' divorce. While Simon frantically searches for his missing cat, Tibbs and Mallory practices fencing with her usual discipline, Jared retreats to Arthur Spiderwick's hidden library. There, the brownie Thimbletack warns him of an imminent danger. Goblins are roaming the woods, and Simon is at risk. Before Jared can react, he watches in horror as invisible forces drag his brother away near the garden fence, vanishing before his eyes. Thimbletack explains that to see the fairy creatures, they need the sight, and reveals the secret of a stone with a hole through its center, one that can make the invisible visible. The siblings venture into the carriage house and discover an old viewing device designed by Arthur Spiderwick, while the brownie conjures the enchanted stone. However, Thimbletack demands that Jared prove his integrity before allowing him to use it. After a tense struggle in which the brownie shifts forms, Jared manages to seize the stone, fully aware he has angered his fairy guardian. Peering through the hole, Jared sees 5 goblins with frog-like faces. pupilless white eyes, glassy teeth, and jagged stones as weapons advancing toward the house. Mallory and Jared try to escape, but are attacked. Armed with Mallory's fencing sword and the field guide itself, they manage to hold the creatures at bay for a time, coordinating their movements thanks to Jared's ability to see them through the stone. The goblins retreat at a strange call, but the siblings know they must rescue Simon before it's too late. Following tracks into the forest, Jared and Mallory encounter a hidden world teeming with life, tiny creatures with wings like leaves and faces that look almost human. Instead of hair, grass, and budding flowers sprout from their small heads, the air itself seems charged with magic. There, they come across a troll in a deep stream, a creature made of foul water and broken teeth that tries to lure them closer. They escape when sunlight strikes the monster, but are forced to leave one of the swords behind. Further along, they find Simon's mud-stained shoe, confirming they are on the right path. After escaping the troll and finding the shoe, they press on until the trees begin to thin. In the distance, they discover a goblin camp gathered around a fire, where Tibbs has been killed and is roasting on a spit while the creatures sing a gruesome song. Cages hang from the trees, filled with trapped animals. And finally, Simon, confined in a cage far too small for him. They also meet Hogsqueal, a boggart with childlike teeth who offers to help in exchange for being set free. Jared frees Simon, and, after some hesitation, releases Hogsqueal as well. In return, the creature gives them his spit so they can see the fairy world without the stone. Hogsqueal distracts the goblins by urinating on their campfire, creating green flames that allow the siblings to escape. They are pursued, and Jared comes up with a desperate plan: lure the goblins toward the troll in the stream. They manage to cross the shallow water while the creatures follow, and the troll emerges to capture them, eliminating the goblins. Despite their relief, Simon insists on rescuing the remaining animals, including an injured griffin the goblins had been tormenting. Before freeing the animals, Jared insists that Mallory also needs to see the invisible world to stay safe. Hogsqueal spits into her eyes. When Jared asks how long the effect will last, the boggart casually reveals that the sight will remain until someone gouges out her eyes. With great effort, the siblings drag the griffin to the carriage house using a tarp, while Simon soothes it with gentle words and tends to its wounds using water from a hose. Returning home at dawn, they have to invent an elaborate story about a cat stuck in a tree to explain their absence and disheveled state. Their mother, worried and furious, grounds them for a month. When Jared goes up to his room, he discovers that Thimbletack, enraged at having the stone taken from him, has destroyed his bed in revenge. In the aftermath of the adventure, the siblings are left with troubling questions. Who or what wants Arthur Spiderwick's field guide? Why were the goblins searching for that specific book? They now understand that the invisible world is far closer than they ever imagined, and that their actions carry consequences. With the griffin recovering in the carriage house, a peculiar boggart as an uncertain ally, and magic revealed before their eyes, Jared, Simon, and Mallory know this is only the first of many battles to come. Lucinda's secret. Jared Grace begins the day by taking unusual precautions. He wears a red shirt inside out and backwards, following the instructions in the field guide, lying open on his pillow on a page about protecting oneself from fairy creatures. Even though he has studied the book carefully, he doubts these measures will be enough for what's coming. Ever since they returned with the griffin, Thimbletack, the house brownie, has turned Jared's life into a string of relentless pranks. Cut eyelashes, shoes filled with mud, and even something peeing on his pillow, which his mother blames on Simon's new kitten, though Jared knows exactly who's responsible. Mallory offers no comfort. Instead, she coldly reminds him he's now experiencing firsthand what others suffered because of his choices. Only Simon, who nearly ended up roasted in a goblin camp, shows any empathy. Torn between frustration and regret, Jared wishes he could apologize to Thimbletack, though deep down he knows he would make the same choice again to save his brother. As he tries to head downstairs, another trap stops him in his tracks. His shoelaces have been tied together. In the kitchen, Mallory holds a glass against the sunlight, letting the water cast a rainbow on the wall, while Simon watches in silence, as if that small spark of beauty might distract them from the tension surrounding them. Jared takes a sip of water and feels a sharp burning sensation in his mouth that makes him spit it out. Mallory explains that all the tap water tastes like that and blames the field guide for everything that's gone wrong. She suggests getting rid of it, convinced the fairy creatures will leave them alone if they do. Jared refuses outright. Without the guide, they wouldn't be able to identify the creatures or protect themselves. The argument escalates, but Jared manages to redirect the conversation by suggesting they visit their great-aunt Lucinda, who might have answers about the book and the dangers they face. Their visit to the hospital where Lucinda lives reveals crucial answers. The elderly woman confirms that fairies are real and shares her own haunting story. As a young girl, she was tormented by creatures who believed she possessed her father Arthur Spiderwick's book. One night, the fairies offered her a magical fruit that, once tasted, made human food taste like ashes, condemning her to survive on fairy food alone. Lucinda shows the children small sprites who care for her, but urgently warns them that they must leave Spiderwick House, because magical beings will never stop searching for the field guide. In the middle of their conversation, the book disappears from Jared's backpack, and although he initially suspects Mallory, he soon realizes that Thimbletack has taken it as part of one of his pranks. Back at the house, the siblings discover old maps and notes in Arthur's secret library revealing that their great-uncle had been mapping fairy territories. One entry mentions a meeting scheduled for September 14th at 5 o'clock sharp, along with the instruction to bring the remains of the book. Determined to follow the clues, the children set off toward the nearby hills without hesitation. Along the way, Simon guides them along paths that seem to lead nowhere, and Jared realizes they have fallen victim to a fairy trick known as stray sod, which causes travelers to lose their way. Remembering an entry from the book, Jared frees them by having everyone turn their clothes inside out, thus breaking the enchantment. At the top of the hill, they encounter a fuka, a shape-shifting creature that calls itself the Black Dog of the Night. Speaking in riddles, it warns them of the dangers ahead. Though its words are confusing, the fuka hints that the elves possess what they seek and desire what the children have. Pressing on, they reach a clearing surrounded by trees, only to find themselves trapped as the branches weave together to form an impassable barrier. 3 elves emerge from the forest, a woman with green eyes, a man with leaves in place of horns, and a red-haired youth. They demand the book, claiming they must destroy it to prevent humans from learning fairy weaknesses. To demonstrate the danger of fairy knowledge, the elves allow Mallory to touch a unicorn. As she does, she experiences a painful vision. Hunters chasing the creature, arrows piercing its white flesh, its horn torn away to craft goblets and enchanted charms. The vision reveals how magical knowledge can be used for cruelty. The elves explain that an ogre named Mulgarath is gathering his forces and seeks the book for his own purposes. They also confess that Arthur Spiderwick once tried to deceive them by presenting a burned fake book, and so they kept him in the fairy realm as punishment. The elves take Simon hostage, promising to release him only if Jared and Mallory return with the field guide. Remembering that he and Simon are identical twins and could be mistaken for one another, Jared devises a plan. Noticing that his backpack bears his initials, J.E.G., he proves his identity and demands to be set free, pointing out that the pact specified they would hold Simon, not Jared. Bound by their word, the elves let him go. As he escapes, Jared hears the fuka's laughter, suggesting that if he had been less clever, he might have found something even more valuable, hinting that Arthur could still be alive, trapped in the fairy world. Back home, the siblings stumble over marbles and metal toys scattered by Thimbletack, who continues his relentless pranks. Despite the danger, Mallory changes her mind. She no longer wants to get rid of the book. The 3 decide to keep it and refuse to let the fairies scare them into submission. Jared holds on to the hope that if Arthur is indeed trapped in the fairy realm, perhaps one day they might be able to rescue him. 2 weeks pass without any strange activity at the Spiderwick estate. The burning water is explained away as contamination from old wells, and even Thimbletack has fallen silent. Jared almost convinces himself that everything was just his imagination, but Simon's griffin is still there, living proof that the unseen world is real. The calm is shattered when the family heads to one of Mallory's fencing competitions. She wears extra protection beneath her uniform, nervous about facing a new team. During the event, Jared notices a mysterious girl rummaging through his sister's belongings, and then sees something impossible, a perfect double of himself tampering with Mallory's bag. When he confronts the creature that has taken his form, Jared realizes that deception is one of the fairy folk's most dangerous tricks. The situation worsens when Mallory mysteriously disappears after winning her match. The twins later find her fencing medal in a clearing in the woods, surrounded by stones from the quarry with the word "trade" carved into them, a clear sign that someone is demanding a trade. Remembering the map they found in Arthur's study, Jared and Simon head to a nearby abandoned quarry, where they must solve a riddle carved into the stone. Seem to trick Hentook Pen. Simon studies the characters again and again, testing different combinations. The letters seem to resist meaning, forming nonsense words repeatedly. Then something clicks. He rearranges them, separating and regrouping the letters until his eyes suddenly light up. Knock 3 times to open. The brothers knock 3 times on the rock, and the ground gives way beneath them, plunging them into the depths of an underground world. Below ground, the twins are captured and caged by gray dwarves, master craftsmen allied with dark forces. They are brought before Lord Courting, who presents them with an awe-inspiring yet chilling spectacle. The first ironwood tree, a metallic creation of eternal beauty with hammered silver leaves and copper mechanical birds. There they discover Mallory, transformed into something like Sleeping Beauty, preserved inside a glass case wearing a white dress and a crown of metal leaves, robbed of her freedom. Lord Courting demands the field guide in exchange for her, but when the children hand over what they believe to be the book, the dwarves betray them, keeping them locked in the cage with no intention of honoring their promise. Despair begins to set in, but Simon remains calm, noticing details others might overlook. When an elderly dwarf proudly shows them the locking mechanism of their cage, the twins seize a moment of distraction to snatch the keys. After escaping their prison, they face the challenge of waking Mallory. Jared realizes she is not asleep naturally, but held under a cold fairy spell meant to preserve her as an eternal trophy. Remembering fairy tales, he knows that a tangible human bond, like a kiss, can break the spell. When he kisses her cheek, the warmth of human life shatters the spell. With Simon's help supporting her, Mallory regains consciousness, dazed and weak. Together, they must find a way out while hearing the metallic barking of mechanical hounds sent by the dwarves to track them down. During their escape, the children encounter a peculiar creature, a nodder, known as a banger, with glowing eyes who lives in the mines and can hear messages in the sound of stones. This strange ally gives them a smooth, cold rock, saying it wishes to travel with them, and points out a dark passage leading to freedom. However, the path brings them back to the great chamber of the ironwood tree. The mechanical dogs burst in, their garnet red eyes blazing. The siblings barely manage to climb onto the tree's metal branches before one of the hound's jaws tears Mallory's dress. With surprising composure, Simon distracts the creatures by throwing the stone the nodder gave them, transforming the fearsome guardians into harmless, playful companions. After crawling through damp, narrow tunnels, they emerge once more at the surface near the quarry, just as dawn begins to paint the sky. But their relief is short-lived. From their hiding place, they witness a terrifying scene, a horde of goblins and the terrifying ogre Mulgarath, with dry branches for hair and curved horns, meeting with Lord Courting. The goblins drag along a human-sized prisoner with a sack over his head, his hands and feet bound with dirty cloth. The dwarves present carts filled with gleaming weapons as a display of loyalty to the ogre's new regime. Lord Courting bows before Mulgarath, thanking him for the honor of serving and boasting that nowhere else will he find finer craftsmanship. Mulgarath then reveals that he knows the dwarves' book is a fake and contemptuously discards it before everyone. Though he claims to possess the guide, in truth, he still needs to recover the real one from the Grace children to complete his domination. With a cold command, the ogre orders his goblins to attack their supposed allies. The dwarves, confident in their skill with weapons, are quickly overwhelmed by the goblins' ruthless ferocity. Jared, Simon, and Mallory watch the massacre in horror, realizing that Mulgarath is loyal to no one, and that his plan to conquer the human world is moving forward without restraint. The children know they must return home to warn their mother about the looming threat, even if she may never believe them. The siblings return home at dawn after a night of danger, only to find the Spiderwick estate in ruins. Broken windows, shattered furniture, and an unsettling silence greet them. Thimbletack, the house brownie, tearfully reveals that goblins led by the ogre Mulgarath have taken their mother before sunrise. Guilt torments Jared, who believes things might have turned out differently if he had destroyed Arthur Spiderwick's field guide as the brownie once advised. In the midst of the chaos, Hogsqueal the hobgoblin appears. After a tense confrontation with Byron, Simon's griffin, he admits that Mulgarath has established his palace at the town's garbage dump, guarded by an army of goblins and small dragons. Jared decides to seek help from the forest elves in order to speak with his great-uncle Arthur Spiderwick, who has been trapped in the fairy world. The green-eyed elf agrees to his request on the condition that the field guide be destroyed once it is recovered. Arthur, disoriented by the passage of time, cannot offer any magical solution, but he shares vital information. Goblins are cowards without Mulgarath, ogres are vain and prone to boasting, and European dragons are venomous but can be defeated. He also reveals a crucial detail: cow's milk drastically accelerates a dragon's growth, and once they reach adulthood, they release a toxin that poisons everything around them. At that moment, Jared has a revelation that connects all the pieces: the well water that burned their throats, the mysterious contamination affecting the Spiderwick property, wasn't a coincidence. Mulgarath had been feeding milk to his dragons to speed their growth, and the creature's venom had slowly seeped into the underground water supply. Armed with this knowledge, the siblings come up with a risky plan. Mallory and Jared allow themselves to be captured by Hogsqueal, who escorts them to the dump while pretending they are his prisoners. Simon and Byron provide cover from the air. Mulgarath's palace is a grotesque structure built from garbage, glass, and metal, surrounded by a moat of sharp shards. Inside, the silence is unnerving. The heroes climb a peculiar spiral staircase made of wooden planks suspended by two long metal chains, making it unstable and difficult to climb, especially for Simon, whose arm is still injured. Thimbletack uses his magic to steady the steps so they can all make it to the top. At the summit, they find a corridor with 3 uneven doors. Opening the middle one, they discover a vast chamber with cathedral-like windows made of translucent glass mosaics. In one corner, their mother lies bound, gagged, and unconscious. At the far end, suspended by ropes and pulleys, hangs someone who appears to be their father. The scene brings both relief and tension, as Jared begins to sense that something about his supposed father's behavior and words feels off. The tension explodes when the supposed father reveals his true form, Mulgarath, the shape-shifting ogre, who captures Mallory and Simon. Remembering Arthur's warning about ogre's vanity, Jared pretends to give up and asks questions to keep the monster talking. Meanwhile, Thimbletack, hidden inside Jared's hood, manipulates the chains to secure the siblings. Confident in his victory, the ogre reveals that the field guide has been beneath his throne the entire time. Seizing his chance, Jared drives his sword into Mulgarath's foot and yanks the chains, sending the ogre plunging into the crystal-filled pit. But the battle is far from over. Heart pounding and sword still in hand, Jared watches as Mulgarath, wounded and enraged, begins to transform, using his shape-shifting ability. Its massive body twists and shrinks. Its skin becomes covered in scales. The ogre has turned into a dragon to climb back toward the balcony. Jared shouts a warning to his siblings, who hang precariously from the chains above the pit. Simon tries to kick the creature, but only causes the chains to sway dangerously. Leaning as far as he can, Jared strikes the chain with his sword, severing it just as Mulgarath falls into the abyss. During the fall, the dragon transforms again, shrinking into a tiny swallow that takes flight toward the mass of goblins gathered below. At that critical moment, when all seems lost, Hogsqueal appears out of nowhere. The hobgoblin snatches the bird mid-air and, without hesitation, bites its head off. He chews twice and swallows. Jared can't help but laugh. Leaderless, the goblins scatter. Byron the griffin has already destroyed the young dragons, and the Grace family returns home exhausted but safe. 3 weeks later, life slowly begins to heal. Lucinda, freed from the ogre's magic, moves in with the family. Jared and Simon transfer to a new school, and Mallory continues with her fencing team. A leaf bearing a message from the elves drifts down, reminding Jared of his promise regarding the field guide. That night, the family goes into the forest, where the elves, grateful, return the guide for them to safeguard. Acknowledging that humans can use its knowledge wisely, they also offer one wish to each sibling. The Graces ask that Arthur Spiderwick be given the choice to remain in the fairy world or return to the mortal one. The elves grant their wish. Arthur appears riding Byron. After an emotional reunion with Lucinda, he chooses to return, knowing that once he touches mortal soil, his body will crumble into dust. In a final embrace, he fades into smoke that rises toward the stars. Lucinda, serene, accepts his passing. Jared realizes that although this adventure has ended, his world will never be ordinary again. And if you enjoyed this journey through the Spiderwick Chronicles, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more stories like this. See you in the next one.